has come up with a plan of action, so I guess you're going to introduce them to us, Gary?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know that this is kind of a short notice. I think everybody got notice on Thursday, and we're kind of on a timeline. We've been on a timeline pretty much all summer, and I can tell you that the group of people that I've had a chance to work with this summer has been absolutely phenomenal. As you know, last year, I think it was in November, the St. Teresa's Church came on the market, and it kind of opened up all kinds of ideas over how we can rectify some of our building problems. And one of the issues that we have in town with our municipal buildings is our police department. And I've been preaching ADA compliance now for a good part of the year, and I've kind of driven that point home, I think, enough so that I really don't have to drive it home anymore. The church was going to present us a situation where we're going to be able to move our town office out of its location, moving it into the rectory, and the police department was going to be able to occupy our town office. We're going to solve the issues that we have with handicapped citizens in town. But unfortunately, under the circumstances, as we dug into this church project, it quickly escalated in price to a point where it approached and exceeded $1 million, which by our town charter specifically states that the only time that you can have a project that exceeds $1 million is by referendum vote in November. Given the fact that our contract was expiring in June, probably not going to be re-upped because we had people waiting in the shadows to buy the property, we abandoned it. I took a month off and I talked with several people, and I had a few ideas that were thrown at me, and I thought that there was some merit behind one. And the merit was, the idea that I thought there was merit was to simplify this whole project. We certainly have building needs, but instead of going for this giant project, start taking care of this in phases. Put together a committee and let this committee evaluate our current municipal buildings and make a determination on a need-based situation. What's our worst case scenario, and try to rectify that. So I sat down, I interviewed a few committee members, and the committee grew to a group of people that it's amazing what this group has done. Most of this committee sits behind me, or beside me, and Mike Willie was volunteered to be the chairman. With a little bit of help from my friends. And I can tell you right now, it's been a very educational experience for me. I've had a chance to see some real talent, and this committee's been phenomenal. So my goal is to present this project to our council and our budget advisory committee tonight, and in hopes to answer any questions or concerns that any of you may have to your pleasure, and to take a vote on this by not only our council but the budget advisory committee, so that we can take this to our November 3rd vote. So from that point, what I would like to do is I would like to turn this floor over to our committee chairperson, Mike Willie. He's put together this really good PowerPoint, and we'll take it from there. Mr. Willie.
Thank you. Thank you. As Gary said, and some of you may have thought that because of the quick nature of putting this meeting together, we were trying to rush this decision. From the committee's point of view, we made a commitment at the front end that we were going to go through this in a methodical process way. Now, yes, we do believe that getting to the November 3rd date would be better than having a town meeting where we might have 100 or 200 people making the decision. So we'd like to be able to work to that date, but frankly, we still have the commitment of making sure that every step in this process, and I'll show you the ones that we've gone through, is done methodically and well thought out. So I just wanted to make clear what the committee's situation was. And speaking of the committee, I'd like to introduce them. As Gary said, I'm Mike Willie. Let's see, we'll just start around. Eric Sharp has a background as a public service officer, a lot of experience in fire and police facilities. Ned Hammond other than being a retired airline pilot, has a lot of experience running a lot of local businesses here in the community. Kelly Kinney Michaud, other than being a namesake for K&K Surveying, is also involved with finance and accounting at Colby College. Rick McKenzie, another key member of the team, has contributed an incredible amount of time to put together some of the estimates that we have made. He is a construction consulting engineer, I think probably you know. Boyd Snowden, the town consulting engineer. Boyd over here has helped out with the site plan. John Cox, John and I graduated from Williams High School. I will tell you that we celebrated our 50th reunion this year, so you can figure out what class that was. And but John and I also went to the University of Maine, ended up going in through the engineering program, and John spent a lot of time with what was then Scott Paper in their mechanical engineering area. Gail Heward says medical technician. Gail is over here. Gail, but more than that, Gail called us about halfway through this process in the middle of the summer and said, you know, I talked to you when you were at the election making your pitch, and I kind of thought maybe we could find some other funding that would help this project. So she on her own called the Alphon Foundation and asked them if this might be a possibility. Now the Alphon Foundation doesn't do any, never done any municipal kind of grants, but in discussing it with them, and I'll talk a little bit about this more as I go through the presentation, we are in fact going to submit an application to them. They haven't said no, and in fact, if we can do this, and we'll kind of tell you the scope of what that might be, then it would help also with the funding of the project. So now here's a person, along with the rest of this committee, that are all citizens of Oakland, that are really make me proud to be part of Oakland, because she took it on her own to do this, and is now part of our committee. So everybody has contributed to this process. Now, we're talking about the police department, but we actually did, and it was easy to get to the police department, but we actually did a quick analysis of all the facilities in the town of Oakland. Our objective was, or activity description as it's defined here, was to identify the critical town facility needs and recommend solutions that meet the needs of the community while minimizing the impact on taxpayers. I don't know, because we never really asked everybody individually, but I do know that a number of the members of this committee did not vote for the last big package that was put forward to the town for a whole bunch of reasons. So we're very sensitive about the impact on the taxpayers and trying to make a cost-efficient recommendation for any solution that we come up with. So we wanted to identify the most critical facility needs in the town of Oakland, prioritize those needs, determine the urgency, and identify the risks, and then go through a thorough evaluation of all the potential options to solving that problem, and then recommend a solution, which we'll be doing tonight. I said it was relatively easy to get to the police department as our first priority. If you go through all of the facilities in the town of Oakland, many of them are adequate as they are. There are 3 that are not, the police department being the worst of those, and then issues not only with the construction of the fire department, but some of the ADA compliance issues there, and as Gary talked about, some of the deficiencies, or the ADA deficiencies in the town office. So when we looked at this, as I said, we quickly focused on the police facility. The building was originally built in the early 1900s as a 2-story house. It was Red Miner's house. It was a child care facility that Red Miner ran with his wife ran for a period of time, and really never designed for any kind of public building. It is not ADA compliant. There are water and moisture invasion and mold issues in the facility, which creates maintenance, health, and record storage risks. No fire protection and suppression, which can lead to a safety hazard. Inadequate evidence storage. A lot of the evidence storage is done in a closet in the second floor, which isn't big enough really for the evidence that they have, so evidence is put in other places, which is not necessarily secure. So that could lead to potential prosecution risks if we can't find it or document it properly. And the layout does not provide adequate support for victims when victims and perpetrators are brought in together. One of the things that we found, and we visited several, 5 actually, other police department facilities, is that one of the things that we do not want to do is to allow victims and perpetrators to be interviewed in an area that is close together, because then the victims tend not to say anything, and the perpetrators can create, a verbal threat for the victims. And we found that many of the other facilities, especially the new ones that were built like in Waterville, were built specifically with a floor plan to prevent that. And there are unsecure public areas which create potential safety hazards as well. So the building does not meet the basic needs of the police officers who serve, or the public, who should expect a safe and secure facility when they are there. And if any of you have not gone through it, I had been in the public areas, the reception area, several times, but never really did a tour of the complete facility. And when we did the tour, and all of the committee members went through the facility, we find many, many areas that are really out of compliance, not safe, and really not appropriate for a public building. Once we focused on the police department facility, we followed a methodical process that was developed by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And this is a police facility planning guideline that kind of walks through all of the steps that you should take in a methodical way. And we're actually down through here talking about looking at making the proposal and obtaining project funding. But we went through every one of those steps, and we've had 10 meetings since May. We've met at least every other week, sometimes multiple times in the week, to be able to get to this point, and that's what we're going to present to you today. If you have questions along the way, please stop me, and I will either get the right person to answer it or answer it myself. So the options that we evaluated were outsourcing the police services or combining services with other local departments. We learned a lot by talking to people both at the election and at Oakfest. And every once in a while the question would come up, why do we have the police department? Can't we outsource this? So the committee wanted to drive this one to ground and have that discussion and take a look at that. There are many people in the town of Oakland, and I would say the majority, that would not want to do this for a whole bunch of reasons, which we can talk about. But we felt an obligation to do this. Now, as you might expect, it created a little angst with 2 of the people that are sitting over here right now. But I think they understood when we got through that this was something that we really wanted to answer the question, we really wanted to understand and make part of our analysis. The other one was to look at renovating an existing RSU 18 building. And so we have had meetings with Gary Smith in RSU, and we'll talk about that and what we decided there. Then renovating the existing PD facility, that was probably one of the easiest decisions, because as I said, if you walk through it and look at the issues that would be involved in renovating, you essentially get to the point where you couldn't do that cost effectively unless you tore down the building anyway. And then building a new facility. So those are the 4 options that we evaluated. The decision process steps, we met with other regional police departments to assess the advantages and disadvantages of combining or outsourcing. We'll talk about that a little bit. As I said, we reviewed the availability of other local facilities, including the availability of RSU buildings for the police department. At the June 30th election, we surveyed taxpayers, and we had this information stand at Oakfest to be able to lay out what what we were thinking at the time, and also to get from the people that we talked to what their ideas, desires, or recommendations would be. We offered to and did provide some tours to the existing, of the existing PD facility for those that were interested. As I said, we visited 5 other regional facilities to compare and gain lessons from their experience, including Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Winthrop, and Monmouth. Several of those were new facilities. One of them, at least, was a renovation of an existing town building, and a wide variety of sizes and police department sizes in that group. And then we reviewed the options and advantages, disadvantages for renovating the existing building or building a new facility. At the June 30th, we actually took some quantitative data. We surveyed, out of everybody that was there, 352 people, 75 of which said that they were not familiar with the police department. Out of the 277 that were familiar with it, 45 people said it was satisfactory. 232 said it needed improvement. And we have all of the comments, but I just tried to summarize them in a way that would make some sense for this presentation. Basically, the people that said it needs improvement were highly supportive of a solution as long as alternative facilities were investigated, costs were controlled, and efficiencies gained from the project. There was quite a lot of this issue that Gary talked about in terms of people wanting us to solve one problem at a time instead of one big problem, and perhaps solve many of those issues at one time. That, in fact, may not be the most economical way to do it, but it's probably the one that has the best public support based on our previous experience. And then the current location of many of them said was preferred. It's one that they know, it's one that it's in the same public safety area that the fire department was with, so they preferred something in that same general area. For the people, the 45 that said it was satisfactory, a lot of the comments were basically, I don't want to spend any more money, period. So, there's that. And of course, this was in the context of the election that was on the RSU budget. So it may have been even biased a little bit toward the people that didn't want to spend money because of that issue as well. So, but this, we do believe that this represents a good representation of what the community is feeling about the police department. Statistically, the survey, if you look at the numbers and how they answered, in statistics talk, it has about a 95% chance of being plus or minus 5% of those 84 and 60% numbers if we had everybody in the town respond. Any questions about that? I know when we start putting numbers up, it might be confusing. Okay, so now let's look at the different options. We had actually, the way we worked the whole committee is we had several subcommittees assigned to different activities, which worked really well. They were generally 2 people, maybe sometimes 3, and each one of them would go off and do a piece of the project. In this particular case, we had a subcommittee that met with with other regional law enforcement officials to discuss the option of outsourcing and combining. Specifically, we talked to the Kennebec County Sheriff's Department. The result of that discussion was the Kennebec County Sheriff's Department didn't believe that there were any significant cost savings in outsourcing that service. Would require the use of some facility in the town anyway for walk-ins and bookings. There would be significantly longer travel times for adequate coverage, adding personnel and operating costs. Kennebec County Sheriff has a patrol staff. They're the ones that are out on the road. It's only 15 people for the whole county, so you can kind of imagine what that response would be. We couldn't use, if we decided to do that, we couldn't use the current police department facility for them because it is in violation of so many of the regulations, and currently we're grandfathered into that, but if they came in, they would not be. In addition to all of those, and based upon, again, a lot of the discussions that we had with the public, these are some of the other reasons that we don't think that's a good idea. The one thing that the police department can do, and we should look at it to do in terms of the long-term plans for the town, is to act as a differentiator in bringing in commercial business. And having a local police presence is needed to differentiate us in order to be able to do that. If you know, we go the route of not having that, then local businesses are going to go to some, or new business, I should say, are going to go to some place that do have that to protect their assets. And that's true for both the police and the fire department. Oakland does have a long tradition of local community policing that is valued by the local residents. They told us that. Current community policing would be lost. The officers that are in Oakland do a lot of local community service and community policing. Cross-training of police and fire department would not be available. The other thing that Oakland is kind of unique in is that with a few other towns around us, we have a significant influx of summer residents and summer traffic. And that is also presents some needs that would be difficult to provide with an outsourced service. And the increase of drug-related incidents is reduced in towns that have a local presence of police. So for all of these reasons, and the fact we didn't see any significant cost savings, we made the decision that we weren't going to pursue outsourcing or combining police services. Renovating an existing RSU 18 facility. Another subcommittee met with Gary Smith to discuss possible use of RSU facilities for our municipal facility needs. What we found out, and what you may know, is that RSU 18 is just beginning a facility evaluation process to attempt to consolidate and reduce costs. That process, they believe, will take 6 to 9 months and include a discussion about the most costly facilities. Now, there are 6 facilities that are under 300 students in RSU 18. 4 of those are outside of the town of Oakland. Those 6 facilities are the ones that cost the most. So how to deal with that in terms of consolidation and what to do about that is not only a financial issue, but it's going to be an issue with the other local towns that are in the RSU. Those buildings are shut down and their kids are sent to Oakland in some of the other facilities for them. They are dealing with an issue of projected reduced students. They do believe that at some point there may be some of their buildings would be available for municipal use. The buildings on Heath Street, these buildings, there's 3 of them, could be considered in future town use if these spaces could be consolidated into the high school campus. But in order to be able to do that, according to the RSU, that's going to require capital expenditure and voter approval. So even though we think down the road that there is some opportunity for the municipal, for Oakland to be able to use some of these buildings as part of the municipal buildings, we didn't see it as a solution for the police department. The police department facility needs are more immediate. We do have major deficiencies there, and the current location is more suited to centralized location and response. It's consolidated with the fire department. It's a public safety area, and if we think about what I talked about in terms of supporting new local business, that local business is likely going to be in that KMD corridor. It already has started there. So that location has very good access to the KMD corridor. However, and frankly, we couldn't validate all of the RSU information. We had a big project on our own. We couldn't go out and try to try to validate the information, a lot of the information that they were telling us. But we do believe that at some point, there are going to be facilities here that would be available, and that we should follow up and look at those facilities for other uses in the town. Renovating the existing PD facility. As I said, this one was fairly easy. Every one of the members of the committee has been given at least one fairly significant tour through the facility. And even though the building has been updated over the years, it's still over 100 years old. So the building configuration is not practical for renovation as an ADA compliant municipal facility. And when we talked about the issues with the floor plan and being able to have safe public areas, safe victim and perpetrator areas, those kinds of things, it doesn't provide that. So it's not really a valid option for renovation in terms of what we're looking for there. Building a new facility. As we walked through these, we evaluated and eliminated the options. We did a lot of surveying, and we talked to a lot of the public. We did visit these other facilities and learn from their experiences and mistakes. And a lot of that was extremely helpful in making a lot of the decisions that we ended up making. And then we analyzed the cost impact and potential impact on taxpayers. We agreed that building a new economical facility in the current location was the best, most cost-effective option, for all of the reasons that we've talked about. What does that facility look like in terms of the site plan? It would be built basically on the same footprint that the existing building is on. Here's the fire department, here's the current town office. This is the property that's on the corner, the private property that's on the corner. We would overlay, we would demolish the current building, we would build the new building on the current footprint, and then modify the parking around here so that it increases the availability of parking for all of the facilities in that campus, and make better access in and out of that area. So the front of the building would be here. There's a sally port, which is the secure entry area here, garage basically. And then there would be a public access area to a meeting room area that would be separate from the police department from the back, or from that side that's facing.
That access would actually be on the fire station side.
Oh, it's on the fire station? Okay, that's it. On this side. The point being that we have planned a meeting facility in there that I'll talk about in terms of its use, but would be available to the town, the public, would be a place that the town council could meet, where we can move the town council out of the existing town council facility, move the code enforcement officer and the tax assessment offices down into that lower level so that we can make that the town office ADA compliant. So it solves two problems. The way that we came up with the floor plan, there were a lot of different inputs into this. One was going to these other facilities and talking to them about what worked and what didn't. Another one was from the police department themselves and their knowledge of what worked and what didn't. We did look at other, other facilities, and also looked at the size of the building relative to other towns our size. Take that glass off. So the police department came up, built this up from the bottom up. I should say